The late afternoon sun cast a golden hue over the quiet suburban street. Kenneth Daniels, a successful black entrepreneur in his early 30s, pulled into the driveway of his newly purchased home, a charming two-story house in an affluent neighborhood. Kenneth had worked tirelessly to achieve his dream of homeownership, overcoming countless obstacles along the way. Today, he was supposed to feel triumphant. As he stepped out of his sleek black sedan, Kenneth noticed a woman standing on the sidewalk. She was white, middle-aged, and impeccably dressed, with a purse slung over her shoulder and an expression that could freeze an entire room. Kenneth offered a polite smile and nodded as he retrieved his briefcase from the back seat. The woman, however, didn't return his gesture. Instead, she narrowed her eyes and marched toward him with an air of entitlement. "Excuse me," she said, her tone sharp. "What do you think you're doing here?" Kenneth blinked, caught off guard by her hostility. "I'm heading inside my home," he replied, keeping his voice calm. Her eyes widened in disbelief. "Your home? I don't think so. People like you don't live here." Kenneth froze, the weight of her words sinking in. He had encountered prejudice before, but it never got easier. Taking a deep breath, he held up his key fob. "I assure you, ma'am, this is my home. I purchased it last month." She crossed her arms defiantly. "I don't believe you. I know everyone in this neighborhood, and I've never seen you before. You don't belong here." Her voice rose, drawing the attention of a few neighbors who peeked out of their windows. Kenneth could feel their gazes burning into him, but he refused to let her anger rattle him. "Ma'am," he said evenly, "if you'd like, I can show you proof of ownership. But I would appreciate it if you let me go inside without further harassment." Instead of backing down, the woman stepped in front of the door, blocking his path. "No, I'm calling the police. Let them sort this out." Kenneth sighed, knowing this confrontation was spiraling out of control. "That's your choice, but I'd advise you to think carefully about the consequences of your actions." Ignoring his words, the woman pulled out her phone and dialed 911. Kenneth stood patiently, refusing to engage further. He knew he was in the right and had no intention of escalating the situation. Minutes later, a police cruiser pulled up, its lights flashing. Two officers stepped out, their expressions a mix of concern and curiosity. "This man is trespassing," the woman exclaimed, pointing at Kenneth. "He doesn't belong here." Kenneth raised his hands slightly in a gesture of compliance. "Officers, this is my home. I have my ID and paperwork to prove it." One of the officers approached him cautiously. "Do you have the documents with you?" Kenneth nodded and retrieved his driver's license and the deed to the house from his briefcase. The officer examined them carefully before turning to the woman. "Ma'am, his documents are in order. This is indeed his property." The woman's face turned red, her indignation giving way to embarrassment. "There must be some mistake. Are you sure they're not fake?" The officer's tone grew firmer. "Ma'am, I suggest you leave this property immediately. This man has every right to be here." Kenneth watched as the woman hesitated, her confidence evaporating. She muttered something under her breath and hurried away, leaving Kenneth to face the officers. "I'm sorry you had to deal with that," one of them said. Kenneth offered a tight smile. "Unfortunately, it's not the first time. Thank you for handling the situation professionally." As the police left, Kenneth entered his home, his sanctuary. He dropped his briefcase on the kitchen counter and sat at the dining table, reflecting on the encounter. The incident was a stark reminder that prejudice could rear its ugly head even in the most unexpected places. Determined to turn this negative experience into a positive one, Kenneth decided to address the issue head-on. That evening, he wrote a heartfelt post on social media, recounting what had happened and calling for greater awareness and empathy. His story quickly gained traction, resonating with thousands of people who shared similar experiences. Within days, Kenneth was invited to speak on local news stations and at community events. He used his platform to advocate for inclusivity and understanding, emphasizing the importance of judging people by their character rather than their appearance. As for the woman who had confronted him, she eventually reached out with an apology, claiming she had acted out of fear and ignorance. Kenneth accepted her apology, but made it clear that her actions had caused unnecessary harm, In the weeks that followed, Kenneth became a prominent voice for change in his neighborhood, forging connections with residents and fostering a sense of unity. His story served as a powerful reminder that even in the face of adversity, compassion and resilience could pave the way for a better future.